to Tactical Talk. This is Zain. Today, the topic of our show is the future of the militant and terrorist organization Daesh, aka ISIS. To discuss this topic, we have with us today Major General Paul Vallely. He is a senior geopolitical commentator and also a retired U.S. Army Major General. He is also the founder of StandUpAmericaUS.org. Welcome to our show, Major General Paul Vallely. This is Zain. It's a pleasure to have you on Tactical Talk.
Thank you.
General, let's get to the first question. In our last show, we discussed the war on ISIS and the battle for Mosul. Since ISIS has fallen in Mosul and other strongholds, which areas are still under their control?
Well, it appears at this time they have very little under their control. Raqqa, which was their headquarters, is primarily diminished all the forces of ISIS, but there's still some elements there. Mosul's been retaken by the Iraqi government, but we have ISIS posing threats now in places like Afghanistan, also in Yemen, and also in Libya. So ISIS is alive and well in those other places, but basically, as we noted in our conference on the Middle East a couple months ago, ISIS would be completely taken out of what they call the Levant, and that in this case would be Syria and northern Iraq. So they basically have been neutralized up there for the most part.
Let's get to the second question. The areas, as you've mentioned, that are still under ISIS, how does the U.S. plan to defeat ISIS in those areas?
Well, again, it's just not the United States defeating ISIS. It's many of the Arab countries, Middle East countries banding together to counter any kind of ISIS threats. Jordan has a very robust program, as does Saudi Arabia and UAE, for example, and Egypt. And so it's now a coalition. It's a new coalition of the United States and some of those Middle East countries that have planning going on to defeat ISIS wherever they may be.
How many militaries and of which countries are fighting ISIS in their strongholds at the moment? And which groups and paramilitary forces are assisting them?
Well, there's a number of countries involved in fighting ISIS now, and it's taken on a whole new coalition group, a different type of group than was before. And this has occurred within the last 6 to 8 months, mostly in 2017 here. And so you have a new coalition of President al-Sisi in Egypt. You have the king in Saudi Arabia. You have United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Jordan, the Iraqi armed forces, and even the forces of Assad in Syria, and even Turkey. So that's about 8 different countries that are involved now. And you also have special operations forces from France and from Britain also engaging in ISIS. So there's a mix there, but it's a new group, different from what we've had in the past. And it'll be a better group because it involves more Middle East countries fighting ISIS now than that was done before. We should also recognize that there's offensive operations going on to neutralize ISIS by the Egyptian armed forces under President al-Sisi, with 2 focuses, primarily in Libya, the next door neighbor to Egypt, and then to the east in the Sinai area of the desert there, which is south of Israel, and in northern Egypt. That would be east of the Suez Canal. And so that's ongoing, and we're very happy to see Egypt having a very robust operational activity against ISIS in those 2 areas.
Major General Paul Vallely, ISIS has spread to the Philippines. How did that happen, and what measures should the Philippines military take to defeat ISIS in their country?
Well, they're already fighting ISIS over in the Philippines, and of course, radical Islamic terrorists have been engaged in the Philippines for a very, very long time. And at certain points in time, the special forces of the Philippine Army and the conventional forces has defeated those kinds of radical Islamic elements in the southern Philippines. And now you have a resurgence of ISIS over there now. And so the Philippines have a very active operational campaign against destroying and neutralizing ISIS, particularly in the southern Philippines. The Filipino armed forces are very good. They've trained with the United States for many decades. And so their special forces, who they use primarily, and even some of their police forces, are very effective. They're very good. They're very well trained. And so they can do it on their own over there. They don't need anybody else now. They can do it on their own.
Thank you so much, Major General Paul Vallely, for being on Tactical Talk. It's always a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
This was Major General Paul Vallely. We were discussing the future of the militant and terrorist group ISIS and how they will be defeated. Until the next episode of Tactical Talk, this is Zain Khan. Take care and goodbye.